Welcome to the Let's Talk Sciences Declassified STEM Survival Guide podcast. My name is Audrey.
And my name is Ramir.
And the goal of this podcast is to talk about the possible career paths one can take in the field of STEM and the challenges one may face in navigating the STEM world.
All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody to the third episode of our 6-part series, the Meds Survival Guide series. In this episode, we will be talking about what it's like to be a first-year medical student.
So just a disclaimer, the experiences of our guests today are not a reflection of all medical students who get into med school. Everyone has different experiences, and it doesn't mean that you have to follow the exact path our guests took to get accepted into med school.
And if you're thinking about applying to the College of Medicine at the University of Manitoba, we did link the program admission requirements bulletin in the description of this episode for your reference for a more thorough explanation from the College of Medicine at the U of M.
So our guests today include first-year med students from the College of Medicine at the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Manitoba, Kevin Stein and Julian Burtniak.
Kevin completed his Bachelor of Science general degree at the U of M in 2019 and is currently in his first year of medical school. He has been a Let's Talk Science volunteer since September 2020.
And Julian is a first-year medical student at the U of M and finished his Bachelor of Science degree also from the U of M in 2020. And he has also been a Let's Talk Science volunteer starting this school year. So welcome, Julian and Kevin. Thank you guys for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good too.
Awesome.
Good.
So I just like to start. So Kevin, you like to play soccer. Did you play in any leagues when you were younger?
Yeah, when I was younger, I played a lot. Like not super competitively, but somewhat, and I try to keep it part of my life still. Of course, now with COVID not happening, but once COVID gets a little bit more on the down, then I'll try to get back into it.
Yeah, it's tough to the COVID thing.
I think you should. And for Julian, for yourself, I heard you head coach youth teams for basketball. Is that right?
Yeah. Growing up, I was always pretty involved in basketball, playing on like competitive and school teams. And then once I sort of finished that, I decided I wanted to give back a bit and start coaching. So I was coaching at the community club level for some 18U teams for a couple of years. And before that, some younger kids. Didn't get to do it last year, but I'm hoping once we're back at it, then I'll be coaching again.
Wow. Were you like a point guard? Because you do need that, basketball IQ, right, to be a coach. Like usually Jason Kidd in the NBA would, because he's a point guard.
Yeah.
Where did you play?
Can't say I was a point guard. A little too tall for that. But I was more center. So, yeah. Okay, that's fair. More of a Shaq type, I'd say.
Shaq. Is it the same with the free throws or what?
You know what? It was on and off. The free throws were okay. A little better than Shaq.
Okay, that's good. As long as, because you need to make those, guys. For the high school students that's listening who play basketball, you need to make your free throws. All right. So in addition to your interest in sports, from the title of this episode, as we know, both of you guys are first year med students, right? So our questions are going to be regarding that. So the first question.
So how did it feel attending your first class as a medical student? Was it exciting, nerve-wracking?
Well, I woke up.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I woke up like 2 minutes before the class. I just got up because it was with COVID. Everything's online.
Yeah.
Anticlimactic, but.
I would say the same. I was definitely a bit nervous, but I was excited. It was like a new chapter. Wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but it's just the same as any normal class. So I was looking forward to it.
Great. So, what or who inspired you to pursue a career in medicine?
For me, my biggest inspiration was probably my mom. She was a pharmacist, and growing up, I spent a lot of time in the pharmacy and sort of around that type of thing. And I really liked the patient care aspect, and that made me really want to be interested in healthcare as a career. And as I sort of looked at the different healthcare fields, I found that I really liked some of the aspects of medicine, like the leadership role and patient care interactions and that. And then I sort of set my sights on that, and it's been all good from there.
Yeah, for me, it was like when I was younger, I heard a lot of people in my community like suffering from like neurodegenerative diseases. And I like heard of like the huge impact that had on the patients and their families. And I knew from like a pretty young age that I kind of wanted to help those kind of people. And then that kind of led me into the direction of medicine.
Oh, interesting.
For sure. I think that's a big part for most medical, at least from the people that I know. Pretty similar, right? They see that something's going on and they want to do something about it. So yeah, that's really good to hear. But I'd just like to discuss, now that you're in your first year, and unfortunately it's during a pandemic, but what can you say about the difference between, you academically, the difference between first year undergrad and now as your first year med school?
Well, you're not gunning for the 100% anymore because like med school is pass or fail. So you're not like trying to like get 100% on everything like you were in undergrad for like getting into med school. A little bit less stress in that aspect.
Yeah. Obviously the workload is increased. The stuff we do is pretty accelerated and very in depth, I find. The biggest change, in my opinion, was like the sort of layout of how they run the courses. So instead of having like 4 or 5 concurrent courses through a term, we'll do different modules. So we'll do like 2 to 6 weeks of a certain topic. You'll do your midterm and your final exam in those 2 to 6 weeks, and then you'll move on to the next like block. And so it's nice that way that you focus on one thing, but it moves very quickly.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that it was a pass or fail actually, but that is definitely, that does seem like pretty good because, like you said, you don't really need to get the highest marks. You just need to pass. What is the passing grade?
I think it's 60, right?
Yeah, it's 60%.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that we're in the middle of the pandemic, and obviously it comes with struggles and maybe some benefits. I don't know. I feel like more struggles for me because I don't know, when I'm at home, I just feel really lazy, or maybe that's just me as a person. I don't know. Who knows? But from your own perspective, what are the challenges of being a first year med student during a pandemic? Especially, it would have been, I guess it would have been a completely different experience if it wasn't a pandemic, right? So what can you say about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this one thing that I think most people nowadays, students, likewise, are experiencing is sort of a difficulty of motivation. I'm definitely feeling that sometimes, being at home all day on Zoom, sort of 9 to 5 Zoom, and then you got to stay at the desk and keep studying afterwards. It's a little bit of a grind. But I think the biggest thing that I was a little disappointed about was not being to meet my classmates as much as I want to. We have a lot of social events over Zoom, and we really try to connect during like in-person labs, but it's not as much as it would have been, and it'll be nice next year, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think Julian hit both the major points. Like I can't really think of any other major challenges.
Yeah, right. Pretty common stuff. And I would agree too, even if I've had experience with university before COVID and after COVID. And I know some of the high school students may be transitioning into first year university and they wouldn't get the same experience as I had. But definitely, it's only gonna get better from here. So hopefully, like you said, next year it will be. I think they're planning to do some on campus courses now. I think in the fall.
Yeah, they're
For you.
setting it up so that small classes will be able to run. They sort of haven't told us what the plan is for next year with regards to our faculty, but I'm hoping for more in-person stuff.
Yeah, I think I just had an email from the university. I think that some classes, like the smaller classes, they're allowing to be in person. So I think that's good to hear. But I'm still kind of scared. But what would you say are some of the benefits of, everything is virtual?
You save commute time. That's a big one.
True.
And you don't need to go outside when it's like -40.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And a snowstorm.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're late for both of your classes, and those are the only 2 classes you had that day, so you went to school for no reason. This is what happened to me. Sorry, guys, I'm venting. What about yourself, Julian?
Yeah, absolutely the commute time. I live pretty far from the Bannatyne campus, so it's nice in that respect that we can go on Zoom and watch our lectures from home. It is a lot different than in-person learning, but yeah, time-wise, it does help.
Absolutely. But do you have labs still? And is it in person? Like, are you still able to go on campus for some aspects of first year med?
Yeah, we do have in-person labs. So we have our gross anatomy labs. So that will be looking at like cadaveric specimens. And we also have our clinical skills. So that's where we learn like our in-person like physical exams. And those we'll have maybe once or twice, 3 times a week. Depends on the week, but we're in there a couple times a week.
But those are usually like smaller groups. It's not like everyone at the same time.
Interesting. So what are some of the things you have done in the lab thus far?
We don't actually get to do much. Mainly watch. I thought we were going to get to dissect and stuff, but pretty much no.
Okay, we do some stuff. we're looking at the cadavers. We're interacting with them, learning, and we're for the most part we're not actually physically cutting or taking stuff out of the specimens, but we look at the stuff, and I do find them helpful for anatomy. And then clinical skills is really nice too. It's there'll be a physician who comes in with your small group, and you'll learn a specific exam, like a respiratory exam or a cardiovascular exam. Yeah, it's nice.
What was it like seeing, was that like the first time you've seen a cadaver during that lab?
For me, it was, yeah. And it was a bit, like the first time, it was a bit shocking and felt a bit uneasy, but you pretty quickly adjust and it seems pretty normal after, and you get used to it. Except for the smell.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure what Kevin thought.
Yeah, same thing. Kind of weird at first, but I agree. You get used to it after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to rate because that's
yeah.
you've been doing that for a while.
For a while, yeah. So
you should be alive at that point still.
Oh, yeah. True. So thus far, has the program been what you imagined it to be in terms of the workload and the amount of hours you have to put in to keep up with the program?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much what I expected, but kind of depends on the person, because since you just need to pass, some people will just, of course, just aim to pass. And then, of course, you don't need to do as much as a person who wants to know everything cold, right? So I think you have more flexibility of how much effort you put in.
Yeah, the workload has been pretty much what I expected. It's a lot of work, but the content is super interesting, varying degrees of difficulty, of course. But the one thing that I didn't really expect was like just the sheer amount of extracurriculars and like different events that you can attend that are put on, that like it's overwhelming. There's no way to participate in every. There's interest groups events, there's like different nights, talks, almost every night there's something going on over Zoom right now. But there's so many things to get involved with. And yeah, it's a lot. It's nice though that there's like a lot of options to meet people and learn more outside of like school hours.
At the beginning, you feel like compelled to like go to every single one, but then after a while, you just give up.
So what are some examples of organizations that med students can take part in?
So pretty much each specialty, like a medical specialty, will have a different interest group. And those are run by the Med 1s and Med 2s, and they'll put on periodic events during the year. I went to like a couple of weeks ago, I went to like a naloxone training by the addictions interest group. There's like suturing stuff. There's talks with cardiologists. There's about everything you could think about. Yeah, and I find them all really helpful. Just can't go to everyone because I would have no time to do other things in my life.
Yeah.
And then outside of interest groups, you can also be like involved in student council and MMSA, which is like our kind of like AMSU for us. Well, sort of. You can also do like research, and there's a lot of things you can get involved with. And let's talk science.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what is that? What is that, Sasa? All right. That's really good to know, right? And you get the opportunity to gain experience, right, and meet new people. So that's always good. But moving on to the next question, a student, grade 11 student from Daniel McIntyre Collegiate. Welcome back, Ray Lee Torino, once again, from Winnipeg, Manitoba, would like to ask, what do you do or learn during the first year of med school?
Well, first year is mainly physiology based. So we like learn like what our body does in its normal state. And then the second year we'll move on to more pathology and the disease states. So it's mainly theory. And then the third and fourth year we go into more practical stuff, and you're mainly in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly what Kevin said. We have our modular courses, which will be like cardiovascular, urinary tract, neurosciences, that stuff. And then throughout the year, we also have our longitudinal courses that we're going through. And that'll be like Indigenous health, clinical skills, so hands-on work, clinical reasoning, so like working your way through a diagnosis. And they're very interesting as well. And a couple others that I haven't mentioned.
And there's probably a lot, right? Because I mean, it's med school, right? So there must be a lot going on. I feel like that's like a pretty common thought that most, people who look at med school think. And just to touch more on that, how would you say the workload differs now that you're in first year med? How does it differ from first year university and also say junior or senior year of high school? Personally, for yourselves, how did you kind of adjust your mindset towards, how to go through academics in all of those levels in your life?
For sure. Personally, I had poor study habits and I wasn't a great student in high school, but I picked it up in undergrad. I think in high school, I sort of didn't do much during the year. And then before the exam, I would cram it all into my brain. And it worked to various degrees of success, of course. It wasn't very consistent. In undergrad, then I would cover the courses a little more. I was following along and I would review the notes after class and sort of in the evenings, pretty much consistently study every day. And then now I find it's very important to at least review stuff afterwards and make sure you're understanding so that you can ask classmates or ask professors if you don't understand something.
Yeah, I found that like high school and even undergrad, actually, for depending on the class, you could get away with procrastinating sometimes. Like, of course, it would pile up, but it wouldn't pile up as much as it is in med school. Like, I feel like in med school, like sometimes like take 2 days off and then like just like just show after that is like, and then like so like yeah. So I think the big thing is that you have to be more on top of your schedule in med school, but I guess it depends on the person and like what your strengths are and stuff like that.
But absolutely right. Major differences. I think personally for me too, I'm kind of similar to you, Julian. It's kind of, it picks up the longer I study, right? And it's true that high school doesn't really teach you how to study, right? Like if you look at it from Manitoba at least, or from my experience from my high school, they give you everything, right? They're like babysitting you, and they give you a bunch of practice quizzes, right? And then when they accommodate you as much as they can. But in university, I find that, it's true. Like you got to seek your own, you got to help yourself. You got to start helping yourself. So
yeah, for sure. My study habits were pretty poor, and I really worked on that hard in university. And I think it's helpful to, at least for kids entering university, to really think about how you're studying and like what the most efficient way you can get stuff done is, so you can have time to do other stuff, so that you're not spending like 5 hours on a thing when you could actively study for an hour or two.
Yeah, I think Ramiro mentioned, I think on our previous episode, like you should study smart or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. So I mentioned in the first episode.
Yeah.
This guy named Marty Lobdell, I believe that was his name. And he made a lecture about studying less and study smart.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a part of it too. It's better to study consistently every day for even just 2 hours, right? Instead of, one whole day and you're spending like 6-7 hours studying for just one course because you haven't caught up, right? And then you also have these other courses that you also have to study for. So just be consistent, guys, right?
Mm-hmm. So that being said, what has been the most challenging part of being a first-year med student thus far, and what has been your favorite part?
I could go first. Probably the most challenging part for me has been, we have like OSCEs, which are like, they're called objective structured clinical exams. And so they're in-person exams on you performing like physical procedures. And so it's really nice and it's super interesting and to be able to practice that. But with COVID, we haven't gotten, and we don't have the opportunity to practice these skills as much as we otherwise would have been in person. So it's a bit difficult to have to sort of do a lot of the clinical skills learning more or less at home and practicing on my family and whatnot. Whereas rather, I think in normal years, there's a lot of like help working on classmates and a lot more hands-on stuff. So that's been a bit difficult. My favorite part, I would say I'm really enjoying clinical reasoning. That's probably one of my more favorite classes we have. And that one focuses on, we'll get a case and you work through different parts of the case and you make a diagnosis and you work with like the physician who's leading your tutorial in small groups. And then you'll get different information and you can pretend to order tests and sort of try and come to diagnosis as a small group. And it's really nice to apply what we've been learning in our modular courses to the more overarching clinical reasoning tutorials.
Yeah, I agree with Julian. Like those two classes, like clinical skills is probably the most difficult for most people. And clinical reasoning, I think, is pretty unanimous as best class. Other than that, like one thing I find as a first year is that kind of weird that like, cause you like don't know anything almost like compared to like other people. So like when you're shadowing and stuff like that, you kind of feel useless and you're kind of like awkwardly just following around, but you can't do anything. You're just like a drag kind of, but.
Yeah, I've found, shadowing has been pretty interesting and just to see how much I know. And it's cool to see stuff like, oh, I just learned about that last week. And then also to see how much like I really don't know.
Right. And I think that's the same for university too, for myself. Like I'm learning just I just took physiology this past semester. And it's pretty interesting. Every single time that I see someone like smoking on the street or something, I'm like, oh, higher risk of COPD, right? Or something like that, right? Like and then that's how I study, sometimes low key. I'm like, what's going on in their body right now? But yeah, absolutely seeing it in a lab is pretty interesting. But I'd like to move on to personally for you guys as students, and I would assume that as a lot of people would, med school is pretty tough, and it's not even just an assumption, right? It is tough, right? And there's stresses that are brought with this, field of profession. And how do you take care of yourself physically or mentally, despite, having all of these stresses and things that you worry about?
Like for me, I try to work out. That's always a nice stress reliever. I don't really know what else I do these days. COVID, there's not much to do.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Just trying to hang out with my family as much as I can. Connecting with my friends, not in person these days, mostly like over games, online games and whatnot. Seeing my girlfriend, shout out Kenzie.
Shout out Kenzie.
Yeah.
Shout out.
And like, yeah, I since the gym has been opened, I've been trying to go to there a couple times a week, and it's been okay. I've fallen off a bit, but there's a lot of different supports as well. Like mental health supports that are associated with our faculty, and they're widely available.
Absolutely. And, I definitely can feel you with the falling off, because I definitely have been falling off. I can barely lift like the bar itself in the gym now. Actually, no, you know what? With 10 pounds on the thing, but that's my PR at the moment. So.
Yeah. I think Kevin can bench 225, so like it's it's pretty good.
He's like humbling himself, man. He's not saying anything. All right, Kevin.
You mentioned video games. Our LTS team, we played Among Us. Remember, Ramir?
Yes, I do remember.
He kept being the imposter every time.
I don't think it was good for my mental health because, I feel like there was some favoritism going on and I couldn't win. All right. But
I mean, that just shows that you're not a very good liar. So
really?
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you wish to specialize in after you graduate from high school?
From med school? I have been researching stuff, shadowing as much as I can and sort of continually assessing. I'm pretty open to a lot of specialties. I think throughout your first year, at least my approach is to think of some of the specialties where I'm probably couldn't see myself doing as much as I could. So one of the things that I personally have wanted to prioritize is like a lot of patient care and sort of patient interactions. And so that means I'm probably leaning away from like pathology and radiology and those types of specialties. But other than that, I'm really, I still want to get some more experience and like hands-on experience before I really set my sights on a specific specialty.
For me, just because like the reason like I went into med school was I was into like neurodegenerative diseases and movement disorders. So I'm kind of more in the aiming for neurosurgery or neurology, just because of my interests. But a lot of people change their minds to med school, so I might have.
Yeah, I think we heard a couple of days ago that about half of people decide what specialty they're going into, like in clerkship, so in their third and fourth year. So I'd say right now, at least, I would say the majority of people are still pretty open to what they want to do, and they're still trying to feel it out.
Yeah, and for the Neurology, from what I heard, is that like what the toughest specialty? Would you think? Wait, do you guys have neurology right now, right? For first year? It's
Like as part of your course, or
Yeah, we do have a neuroscience block.
How hard is that? This is just for me because I'm interested.
I found the neuroscience block to be one of actually the easier blocks personally, especially coming off of what I considered the hardest, which was cardiovascular and respiratory. I found that one pretty tough. And then we had neuroscience, and it seemed really nice in comparison. And it was pretty enjoyable. I'm not sure what Kevin thought.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the class was very well structured. And then also, I think it depends on your interests. So like for me, like neuroscience is my favorite. So like for me, it wasn't even tough studying for it because it was like enjoyable. But then stuff like hematology, I didn't like that so much. And for me, that was really difficult. So I think it depends how much you're interested in the topic.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Then I'm gonna try to explore my own options about that too. But moving on to the next question now. Who are three people that have been the most influential in your life? And not even just the ones that pushed you to go to med school, just in general, people who are influential to you.
It's a tough question.
Should this be in the MCAT?
For me, I'd say growing up and some of my biggest supports were always my family. So my first two have to be my mom and my dad. Both pushed me in different ways. My mom really helped me sort of open my eyes to healthcare, and my dad sort of is there to support me no matter what, and it's been great. And then my aunt, I have a bunch of them, but one of my aunts has been just incredible support as well throughout the whole process, and very helpful family members.
Yeah, I'm going to have to copy Julian. I would say my parents, for sure. That's one and two. And then I think mentors are a big thing, especially in med school. I feel like everyone in med school should try to find someone that can mentor them, because especially for a field like medicine where there's so many things going on, it's kind of good to have someone that can give you advice and kind of steer you in the right direction. I think my mentor helped me out a lot in like getting into med school and even after now.
And I think we mentioned in our previous podcast series also the importance of getting a mentor, right? Because there's some stuff that you don't know and your mentor might know. And obviously your mentor will have more things to know. So it's always good to have that information, right? So what about, let's make it interesting. Like if your life was a movie, like what movie would it be? So I guess what's your favorite movie of all time then that resonates with you?
Well, my favorite movie is probably The Social Network. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I've seen that one.
About Mark Zuckerberg and how he sort of made Facebook. I don't think that would be the movie I like, because Mark Zuckerberg is not the most agreeable person in that movie. He kind of screws over his friend, but great movie. Suggest you all watch it.
No spoilers.
Yeah, good soundtrack. So yeah, that's my favorite movie. I watch a lot of those. Too many during quarantine, but yeah. I don't know if I've seen myself too much in any movies. Probably wouldn't be the most interesting movie if I did see myself in it.
Yeah, my favorite movies are Batman Dark Knight and Inception, if you guys know that one.
Yes.
I kind of resonate with that one because it's about dreams, and I daydream all the time. So
Really? Okay, that's interesting. Is that how you got into med? You just like daydreamed like?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I think we do this new thing where we do rapid fire questions
That we just started this morning.
that we just not actually just right now. Like we just finished writing it down. So,
Oh, yeah, I did. I just thought of
Yeah.
4 questions.
So we're just gonna ask you a bunch of questions, and I guess we can start with Kevin, and then Julian can answer next. But it's just short answer questions. But you can go in as much detail in it as you want. But yes, just rapid fire, just easy questions and general questions. So you guys ready?
There's no testing
Yeah.
medical knowledge, is it?
No,
You get
no.
what I do myself.
No, it's very general.
Yeah, because you guys studied for this or what? Are you? Hi, no, it's just general.
not-
Just general.
It's general. All right. Ramir, you want to start?
Okay, I got it. So, first question: if you weren't in medicine, where would you be?
Trying to get into medicine.
What other profession would you be in?
I guess just keep trying then.
Yeah, I keep trying, but maybe engineering.
Interesting.
I like the problem solving aspect of it.
What about you, Julian?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I would be trying to get into a different healthcare field for sure. Physician's assistant, pharmacy, something along those lines. But medicine was always far and away my number one option.
Awesome. All right. Next
All right.
one is, what is one word that describes your first year in med thus far?
Zoom.
Exciting. I have to say exciting.
Exciting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just a
Zoom.
bunch of new experiences, something like new every day. So it's interesting.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Definitely a lot of Zoom though, I gotta say.
Yeah, I guess every student.
That was a good one. All right,
Yeah.
next one. What is your motto?
You go first, man.
Oh, okay. What is my motto? Just like try your best. Just keep at it. Like don't don't give up. That's what I try to do. I don't say it's my motto, but that's definitely one of my goals.
You can always sleep later. I'll just say the same thing as Julian. Like, yeah, never give up. If you have a dream, just go for it.
Yeah.
Good mottos.
Your first one was good too. I mean,
Yeah, no
but you
professional
should
program will be easy to get into. So
Yeah.
like just keep going for it. Even if you keep like you don't get in, you just gotta keep trying.
Yeah, like if you can't see yourself doing anything other than medicine, like you'll eventually get in. It's just a matter of like how long you're willing to wait for it.
Yeah. Like there's students in our class who have gotten in their first try and they're 20 years old. And there's students who are at a different stage in their lives who are older, who have applied many times. And, you know, every one of them is going to be doctor, right?
We're in the same spot now. But if I may share, motto I like to go by is there's beauty in the struggle and ugliness in the success. Think about that.
That's a good one.
Very nice.
Most high school students would know where this is from, but that's my motto. All right, next one.
Another good one is you don't have to be the best as long as you're doing your best.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
All right, last one. What is the soundtrack of your life? So if you were to choose a song that describes who you are.
You go first, Kevin.
I need like 10 minutes to think about it.
Yeah.
Sick.
Maybe I can share mine. Soundtrack, or maybe this is biased because okay, I'm gonna give it away where that motto is from. It's a song by J. Cole. He's a rapper. And it's called Love Yours. It's from his album 2014, Forest Hills Drive. I think his most successful album out of all his albums. So that is my
Good
soundtrack.
album.
Oh, actually, no. There's another one song by his. It's called The Sideline Story. So it's basically about him being an underdog, and then he's being slept on by everybody, and then how he came up, and then now all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, he's so big now, right? And then I'm a fan now, but then before they were like, I don't like this guy. So I would say that's my soundtrack.
Is it bad that I haven't heard of this guy? Like, should I?
No, not at all. Because
good.
you know
He's
he's being slept on, right? He's really good though. He's kind of like an old school, you know, less modern. You know how some rappers nowadays are like you don't understand what they're saying. He's more
Mumble
of a
rap.
mumble rap. You know, so
Yeah.
he's more of a classic, you know, old school type flow. So
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. What my soundtrack to my life? I don't know. One song I've been listening to a lot recently is like "Wait for the Moment" by Wolfpack. It's one of my favorite songs, and I don't know. Yeah, it's good. I don't know. Maybe that one.
Oh, interesting.
I'll go with "The Funeral" by Band of Horses.
What is that about?
What is that one about?
I don't even know what the song is about. I'm trying to analyze it, but I've listened to it like thousands of times. Still don't know what it's about exactly.
Maybe that's what it is. It's just there's so many perspectives that could go into it, right? There's
Right.
no one way of thinking about it, and that's kind of your mindset, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's really
Think about that. It's so deep.
no. That's exactly what you were thinking, right? That's
yeah. Mhm. I'd say like my soundtrack would be, have any of you watched The Theory of Everything? No.
Oh,
I heard about it.
Yeah,
On my watch list.
Yeah, it's like the story of Stephen Hawking. That soundtrack, it was at the end of the movie. I don't want to spoil anything, but that song, it was "Arrival of the Birds" by Cinematic Orchestra, and it's like no words. It's just like an orchestra playing, and so it's just the feeling. It doesn't even have to you don't even have to have lyrics to it. So
Describe the feeling and how it resonates with you.
I guess life is, fleeting. Sort of that. Also, the strings, when the strings hit, it's like, oh my God, it makes you cry every time when I listen to it. You should watch it. It's really good. Yeah.
Strings, man.
Strings. It's just like,
and wind
adds
instruments.
and like that oomph, you know?
Yeah, the oomph.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
So thank you guys for participating in our rapid fire segment. That was very last minute. So our last question is, our listeners are high school students. Some are like in the beginning of their university journey. What advice can you give to these students who may be interested in medicine or healthcare, or it doesn't even have to be healthcare, who are trying to stay motivated and not give up on their dreams? What advice can you give to them? Yeah.
One thing I would say to people who are sort of thinking about pursuing a career in medicine, especially as high school students, is to like get involved. And that means just send email to like a physician who you know or that you don't know, and they'll probably say yes. And like ask them to shadow, they'll probably say yes. Go experience what it's like to be a physician and see if you like it, if you don't like it. And like, if you do like it, that can help motivate you. And like, get involved in other things. Get involved in, for me, it was basketball, a lot of coaching and helping out with that. But other things, it helps you out. And it also like helps you in the application process, showing diversity of the applicants, showing have interests and you're involved in the community. And then just keep studying hard. If it takes you one time or 10 times, just try your best to get in, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. If you want it, then you'll probably get it.
Yeah, I would say like the first thing, you should like really think about why you want to do medicine and like how much you want it. Because medicine is like one of those fields where you never stop learning, kind of like the education never ends. And so like if you don't really enjoy the stuff and like learning about diseases and stuff like that, it can be a very tough thing to go through. And even being doctor at the end is kind of tough if you don't enjoy it. So make sure that you really want to do it for the right reasons. And then if you do and you really can't see yourself doing anything else, then just keep going, and then you'll eventually get in if you put in your all and don't give up.
That's really great advice. Yeah. Ramir, do you have anything to add?
Oh, you put me on the spot now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I do. And like I said, there's no such thing as a life that's better than yours. That's also one of the quotes from that same song. There's no such thing as a life that's better than yours, right? And it's called Love Yours because, there's way too many things going on around you, right? But all of that is just noise. All right, it's just noise. And at the end of the day, it's not going to affect you as much unless you let it, right? But what you got to make sure is to love yours first. So that's the point of the song, I think. And that's why I stand by it, because it's definitely true. And a lot of people, especially in this field, I think I hear a lot of people comparing, like myself included. I compare myself to other students. Am I competitive enough? Am I worth, as much as they are? Or are my experiences, are as good as theirs? I don't think, that matters. I don't think if yours is better than theirs matters. What matters is that you have it, right? You have the experiences, and you have, and you're actually in it. You're studying, and you have the opportunity. You gotta love yours first.
Great advice.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, as I said, you don't have to be the best, just be your best version of yourself. So I hope to our listeners, you were able to learn something during this episode. And, thank you for listening and staying at the very end of this episode, or who have been listening since our first podcast series. OGs. Yeah. So thank you for listening. And thank you, Julian and Kevin, for joining us today on a Saturday afternoon. You guys are probably busy. I know, Julian, you have work right after this. But yeah, we really appreciate having you guys take the time and just talking about your experiences as a first-year med student. We really appreciate it. And to our listeners, please remember to follow us at LTS_U of M on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to be updated on our upcoming events. Also, feel free to follow and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor, pretty much everywhere. Just look up the title of our podcast and you'll find us. All right. So thank you, Julian and Kevin, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Take care. Have a good one.
On the next episode.
Ian, would you consider yourself a good cook?
Well, I hope so. If I've made a lot of customers very unhappy if I'm not good at it. That was what I did as a career before I moved into medicine. I didn't start going to med school till I was 27, and I was a chef up until that point. So
I think what tipped me towards medicine was like this one story. It was a story about this one guy who was, he was like a doctor in like a battle. He was a sick doctor, so like you would expect him to like tend to the sick soldiers. But when he was there and he saw all these wounded soldiers, he didn't care like who they were, what side they were fighting for. Soldiers on like his side complained to the king, this person is helping the enemies. And then he told the king, well, when I'm out there and I see these people struggling, I don't see enemy or friends. All I see are humans who need help, and I have the ability to help them.